Okay, well, it looks like it is leveling off a little bit here. So we'll get started here. My name is Eric Vitardi from Foundation Software. Pleasure to have you all here today. Thank you very much for joining on your busy schedule and your upcoming holiday weekend. I know a lot of people are trying to get some things wrapped up. I'm very, very happy to be with the folks over at ProNovos. We got Bruce and Kevin here, and we will introduce themselves in a second. ProNovos is a fantastic partner. We've been very fortunate to work with ProNovos, both Foundation and our sister companies with ProNovos over the last couple of years. And our clients have just seen fantastic success using the product, and just a number of testimonials. I see WIC at the bottom of the page, mutual client of both of ours. But this is just something that we wanted to present and show to our clients and some folks out there what's out there, and how you can potentially enhance your foundation solution and really your business. And I know Bruce and Kevin will get into that some more, but just some housekeeping things. Any questions that you guys have, we want to make sure that we get all the way to the end, and we always have a hard time with these because a lot of good questions come in, but maybe we'll push those to the end and we can answer them at the end or via email if we have to following that. And as you'll see too, there's going to be some poll questions popping up throughout the presentation to help us kind of fine tune this presentation as we go. But without further ado, really, we are so pleased to have Bruce and Kevin as joint presenters on this, and I'll let you guys take it from here and see you at the end.
Yeah, Eric, thank you. My man, it's always a pleasure to do a webinar with you. ProNovos and Foundation has been partners for a while now. We've been at this for about 7 years, and at ProNovos, one of the things that we do, actually the main thing that we do, is focus on construction data analytics. And basically, we exist to help you take control of your projects, transform your data into actionable intelligence. And what that means is we help people from the job site to the boardroom. So basically project managers, superintendents, and everyone that's in the C-suite. Including, the accounting folks, really is for everyone. We help them harness the power of real-time reporting and dashboards. And the benefit is it maximizes your project potential. So a little bit about our mutual clients. As Eric said, one of our mutual clients is OTL, subcontractor on the West Coast. Great guys. I've had the privilege of working with them directly. They've been with us for about 5 years, and they basically wanted to improve their business. And so then we have Thomas Construction, based out of Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, Nancy Thomas. I worked with her directly, and basically what they wanted to do was get a better handle on AIA billings. They wanted to provide more transparency around the AP and AR process. So I think they also automated the WIP reporting. We have quite a few clients, mutual clients that we work with. And there's one thing that I could say all of these people have in common. They are all trying to improve their business, and they know that analytics can help them do that. Not sure if you heard this saying, but data is, in fact, the new gold. And you guys are sitting on a gold mine. So ProNovos will help you get at that. So how about I just get into the agenda here? So we have a lot to cover. Get comfortable. I believe we have about 45 minutes. So we'll try to get through this and make it as informative and educational as possible. So on the left, the things we'll cover. So we'll talk about the overview of the analytics marketplace. This is a new offering specifically for Foundation customers. Brand new. Kevin, he'll walk us through it. It's a smorgasbord of dashboards and reporting. We'll get into WIP reporting and automation. One of my favorite, the projected final cost with the root cause analysis. So, the root cause, imagine being able to predict where a job is going to end up at. And if there's a problem, imagine if we could tell you what the root cause of that problem is without you telling us. That's where we're headed with this projected final cost. I'm excited to show this to you. Another favorite of mine is resource allocation. So if you have multiple people within your organization and you're trying to make sure you got the right people in the right place across time, that's the thing for you. However, to the right, I want to point out one other thing. So Foundation did a technology survey in 2021. This survey actually asked numerous questions, but there was one question that we were interested in, and it was, how are people getting data from the field to the office? And it was interesting to see the results. What you see on your screen are the results. What's interesting about this is the top 3 ways is all manual. I mean, check it out. Email, manual spreadsheets, pen and paper, right? People are actually still using pen and paper to get the job done. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you have, but there's a better way, and our favorite, digital spreadsheets. So Kevin will also walk through how you can automate that and, not have a cumbersome, costly way of getting data from the field. So I'm excited to show you that. The other thing I'd like to mention, since we are an analytics company, construction analytics has been around for just a while. So it's kind of the new kid on the block. However, I've been at this personally for a long time. And what I'm going to do is share with you one of the ways an actual company used a lot of data and changed lives. I worked on this project and it was sort of my claim to fame. And so what I'm going to show you starts off with a goal. So if you're new to this analytics journey and you don't know where to start, the very first place you should start is what you want to get out of it. So when I was working with this organization, they knew exactly what they wanted to get out of this. They wanted to, 1, increase their revenue by 3%. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you are a multi-billion-dollar company, 3%, that's a lot of money. They also wanted to reduce costs. So, those 2 things were the goals. And I'll ask you, if you have goals, if your management is putting together a strategy, or maybe you're putting the strategy together, think about how analytics can help you execute the strategy. So going back to the case study, I'll try to be brief because we're here to learn all about the features and all the cool things that we've been developing with Foundation. So this case study, working with this company, they wanted to increase their revenue. And basically, because it's a retail company, they wanted to see how much stuff they could get people to put in a cart as they go down the aisle. And one of the ways that they said they could do that was identify who is an impulse shopper, who will impulsively grab something and throw it in the cart. Now, if we look at the definition of impulse, it is the tendency to act on a whim, behavior characterized by little or no forethought, reflection, or consideration of the consequences. I know a few people like that in my life, but I won't go there. So, the reason why they wanted to find these people again is because they're looking at basically exploiting them. I hate to say the word, but we're exploited all the time by social media. People are using data to get us to change our behavior. Now, the way we had to identify who was an impulsive shopper first was to understand what made someone an impulsive shopper. So we did a little research, and I'm going to tie this back to Foundation and all of the data that you have, and specifically construction, in just a moment. So anyone that is undergoing a life-changing event will show signs of impulsivity. We worked with this stress scale. It's the Holmes and Ray stress scale. And they prioritized, or they ranked the reasons why people will basically experience life-changing events: death of a spouse, God forbid that you lose your life partner, but death of a spouse is something that will cause a lot of stress. And again, when you're stressed, you act impulsively. Well, what they did, they took that scale, that Holmes and Ray scale, and they flipped it on its head. And they said, okay, we're going to basically, this is capitalism at its finest. We're going to look at other things that will cause people to become impulsive. Getting married, pregnancy, new parents, new home, child, significant birthday. We decided to focus on pregnancy because of the data that we had access to. But first, we had to model the data. I said earlier that I'm going to tie this back to foundation. So imagine that if we have your data, if you're really mining and analyzing your foundation data, that data tells things about your organization. It tells us which jobs are most profitable, which PMs are the most effective within your organization. We can look at that data and say, as you execute your strategy, let's look at these characteristics. Now, when I was at this retail company, we did the same thing. We looked at the baby registry. We looked at the data from the POS system website, all of that. And we were looking for outputs. So the output, the possibility of being pregnant, let's rank it. Is it a 50%, 80%, 100%? The expected due date. That's right. We wanted to know when you were due. And what are your most popular purchases? So basically, in order to test our findings, we had to look at the marketing activities to see if people were taking us up on our offers. Excuse me, direct mailings, email marketing campaign. If you ever been to the cash register and got a long receipt with all these coupons on it, the grandfather of that is this company. They said, hey, if you take advantage of these coupons, then we think that our analysis is accurate. And it was. Diaper champs went up 5 times. Lotions went up 10 times. Supplementals, huge profit margin there. So it was effective. We use analytics to drive revenue. We reduce costs because we didn't have to promote and pay a lot of commercial ads for new things. So it was a success. However, we couldn't predict everything. This is the punchline here. We sent an email campaign, an email for, I think it was a coupon for like a diaper champ to this girl. We did not know the age. The father received the email and he said this is the actual email that was sent. My daughter got this in the mail. She's still in high school and you're sending her coupons for baby clothes and cribs. What's up with that? He said, are you trying to encourage her to get pregnant? Gosh, we had to take a step back. Oh, we heard it. I mean, everyone was like, gosh, we made a huge error. They actually shut the operation down and I had to find a job somewhere else after this. CEO was really upset. However, we were right. Afterwards, that person sent this letter. Now, mind you, this is after he wrote to the Wall Street Journal and told them what was going on, a huge stink. This got national publicity. As a matter of fact, I couldn't talk about it for a long time. I was under an NDA, but now I can talk about it. And he said, you're right. I owe you guys an apology. And I think that, it takes a big person to say when they were wrong. So I don't like being right in all circumstances, but it is the data that we look at that tells us how either we can help you or how we can exploit you. And I hate to say and use the word exploit. I would like to say Pronovos Construction Analytics is a force for good. We're helping you get better, and that's what we do. And with that said, I think now we'll get back to the technology. I would love, Kevin, if you could walk us through the analytics marketplace and all the great things that I just talked about. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let you take it over.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the first place, of course, we need to start, just kind of like Bruce was talking about in his story there, is we need to get our hands on the data first. And when you create your Pronovus account, the way you get your foundation data into the software is on the project list here. You're going to see this button up in the right-hand corner for Sync Manager. You're going to select that, go to Foundation. You can add a new database, select whether you're hosted by Foundation or if your data is on-premise. Enter your database name, username, password, hit submit, and that's all you need to do. We'll basically take it from there. Typically, it takes us about 24 to 48 hours to pull all your data into our software. And what we're doing is behind the scenes is we're mapping all that data. We're making sense of it. We're cleaning it. We're going through it. We're modeling it. So we can do a lot of the fun analysis to help you provide the insights that you need to. So we try to make this as easy as possible because, that's always a huge hurdle we see with people when they try to do analytics is, so much of just prepping and handling the data is such a time-sucking activity. And we want to take that off and basically get all your data into the system so you can really start to focus on just the analysis part of it. So,
and Kevin, sorry.
Yeah.
So how many months does that take to happen?
How many months does that take to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, we should be able to pull your data in hopefully a matter of days. It's yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, okay.
So once we get the data in, the next place you're going to want to go is to this analytics tab down here. And this is the marketplace Bruce was referring to earlier, where what we're doing is, we've dealt with a lot of foundation customers. We've seen certain requests for similar dashboards. So what we've done is kind of built those dashboards standard. So as soon as you sync your data, you're able to hop right into some of those dashboards and see it. And this is something like Bruce was saying, this is a new product for us. So if you check this on a daily or weekly basis, chances are we're going to have something new in this marketplace for you to look at. And we're always kind of looking for recommendations from other foundation users. So if you go in here and you want to see an analysis on something that we currently don't have, you can request a custom dashboard. It's going to go to our data science team and we'll review it to see if we're able to create a dashboard for you to basically produce that. And with that in mind, I'm going to launch another poll here just to kind of get some of your guys' feedback in terms of what are some other dashboards that you would maybe want to see.
Kevin, while that poll is going on, you didn't introduce yourself. You're the product manager here. So
Yep.
How did you come up with the dashboards that we see? Where did you, how did you know where to start? We got, 7 of them now?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Bruce. So prior to my time with ProNovos, I was actually a project manager in construction. So, a lot of these first dashboards we built were some of those big pain points where man, this used to always drive me crazy as a project manager. But something we're always conscious of is just because we think something's a good idea doesn't mean it actually is. We want to get that feedback from contractors of what is it that you're not getting the visibility into your data right now that you do need to get that insight to understand a deeper level of understanding in terms of how your operation is proceeding.
Got it.
Yeah. So with that said, let's hop into a specific dashboard. The first one I'm going to hop into is the WIP dashboard. I love starting with the WIP just because I think that is probably one that everyone's kind of familiar with. Most contractors are producing a WIP in some form or fashion. And what we're trying to do is, one, we're going to automate that process. You don't have to do any calculations on the back end. We're going to pull all that data for you. We're going to do your earned revenue calculation, your over under billing calculation, and we're going to populate that all down here in this WIP schedule. So you can see a lot of the normal things, the revised contract, the budget, what's your profit margin, earned revenue, backlog, bill to date, over under billing. A really simple thing that we're able to do that helps a lot of contractors is we can start to add what we call thresholds in the system, where we'll basically flag something. So you can very quickly see a project that might be in trouble. So, if you have 100 active jobs, just scrolling here, I can very quickly see 210119. I'm over budget on this job. I should probably drill into this and understand at a deeper level what's happening here. But really, a lot of the fun of this WIP report is not just the ability to look at all the data in one place, but then to slice and dice it in different ways. So for example, if I want to look at all the projects that I just have going on in Texas, I can select Texas from the map here, and it's going to update everything on this chart to only display the information related to Texas. So now I'm only looking at my jobs in Texas. I can do the same thing with project managers over here. So if I want to select a certain project manager, I can drill in here and see all the projects relevant to him. And this is a really good tool you can use to start to see if, let's say one project manager is really guilty of always having underbillings. You can very quickly identify if that's an issue, and you can go, hey, John, I really need you to kind of be more aggressive on your billings. Let's sit down and work on this together. You can also look at it from a project type way. You're not restricted just to this here. You're able to kind of change it in real time. So a lot of different potential of what you can kind of do with this WIP report to be able to slice and dice the information in different ways.
So Kevin, I saw when you had the map and the different colors, I assume the colors, they represent something, right? The various colors.
Yeah. So, the colors here, they're going to represent the percent of your overall revenue that you have by state. So for example, let's say you're doing work across 10 different states. It's going to be very quickly to tell you, hey, maybe most of your revenues in Texas, and you might think of yourself as a California contractor. Maybe you're like, oh, this is our bread and butter. This is where our first branch is. But Texas, that's actually where a lot of the new revenue is from. And we should really zero in there and focus more on pursuing work in Texas. So it really gives you a way to kind of, look at, where actually are you generating revenue and what are your most successful projects, not just at a geography level, but across a bunch of different attributes.
Got it.
So
I got more questions than I thought I had.
Coming.
All right. So the WIP, it takes multiple people to work on the WIP, right? You got to get feedback from the project manager. You got to get, it's not something that just happens. So how, first off, does this consider the data that the project manager, the cost to complete, is that coming from the project manager inputting in here? And if so, how does that happen?
Yeah, so this is a really good feature that I like as a previous project manager is we're not only pulling the data from the accounting system, but then we also have ways to allow the project manager to supplement that with further adjustments. So for example, here, if I want to drill in deeper to a specific project, I can select this see more. And it's going to bring me to that project here. I can see the project financials, and we call this part the projected final cost tool, where it basically allows the project manager to go in and do a cost to complete analysis based on where they currently stand on the project. And it can kind of be their playground to basically say, like, I think this cost code might need an extra $5,000 to get it done. We actually negotiated the buyout here and we're going to save $3,000. And they can go in and make the adjustments here without having to get into Foundation and have that be part of the financial record. So as you can see here, we're going to pull the original contract amount, the budget, what's the original margin. We can then take into account any change orders to give you your revised contract, budget, margin, any outstanding commitments, job to date cost. And then really something that's great is we're able to kind of show real-time data back to the project manager, how they're basically performing on their profit margin. So down below, they're going to go ahead and make adjustments to each of the different cost code line items. And when they do that, they're going to see those changes reflected up in this projected final cost here. And based on what the changes are they're making for that projected final cost, it's going to tell the project manager, hey, are you experiencing a profit margin fade or are you experiencing a profit margin gain? So you can see right now, the PM on this one must be doing a decent job. Right now, he's showing a slight profit margin gain. But let's say he wanted to come in and make another adjustment. So what he would do here is he would scroll down to the line item he wanted to make the adjustment. He would select it, and it's going to kind of prompt him with a flyout window on the right, where as he goes in and makes his adjustments, so let's say he's like, you know what, I think we're going to come in $13,000 higher than I was anticipating. It's going to prompt him for what is the root cause for the adjustment. And this kind of gets back to what Bruce was talking about earlier about really understanding not only what the changes are in your job costs, but understanding the reasoning behind that. And as you start to aggregate that data over time and get more information, you can start to do some of that predictive analysis to kind of see, okay, if I'm continuously seeing rework issues on projects, I know that's something I need to zero in on. And just as importantly as kind of capturing the reasons as, hey, what may have gone wrong on a certain activity? If the project manager comes in here and says, hey, I actually saved $13,000 on this line item, it's going to prompt the project manager to enter the root cause for the cost savings. And this is something I think a lot of contractors overlook. You know, a lot of the conversations are what went wrong on a project. I would argue it's equally important to understand what went right on the project. Let's say you used an improved process that, you know, allowed you to get something done 10% faster. Well, that's really good information to know. And you want to make sure you're capturing that. So when the next job comes along with the exact same process, you're making sure you're using that same improved process so you can realize those cost savings across several projects.
So I got to ask another question. I see that we have supplier with better pricing. In this time, we are experiencing, a lot of contractors are experiencing an increase in material. So if someone is saving because they found a new supplier, I would assume that when you select supplier with better pricing, it can basically let the organization know, hey, when you're doing this kind of work and you're buying this material, this supplier has better pricing. Is that, am I just like making something up, or is this real?
No, that's spot on. So what we can do is, one, you can always enter a comment here. So if you want to type in, hey, I talked to John at so-and-so plumbing, you know, here's his number, we can capture that. But even beyond that, if you scroll down within this here, it's going to capture all of the transaction data for that line item. So when you say, hey, we have a supplier with better pricing, you can kind of very quickly see, all right, it was related to these vendors here. These are the ones I need to be talking to. And that's a really good tool because, you know, I think a lot of contractors, they get in the habit of, hey, I always buy my conduit from, you know, this vendor, and they just always go to that vendor, and you kind of just take it for granted, and you're not really going and shopping around. And sometimes those moments of crisis where you really have to scramble to buy something new, maybe you find that new vendor with better pricing, but that doesn't get permeated across the organization. So, you know, the one project manager knows, like, hey, here's the conduit supplier with better pricing, but the other 6 project managers are still in the dark. Being able to capture this information gives you kind of the way to disseminate that information across your organization.
Yeah, that's powerful. To me, though, this looks like another report, but because the data is on the analytics platform, you can pretty much do what you want with it, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, we have it kind of right here to aggregate it in certain ways. So, you know, here you can kind of see in a timeline view, in dark blue, you've got your job to date costs, and light blue is your commitments. And then the dashed line is kind of what your revised budget is. So you can kind of see how you're tracking to see when you may have actually crossed to being over budget, under budget. And that's like a really good tool to kind of see, you know, if you have commitments early in the job and you're already over budget, it's going to be able to give you that timeline view early. But what we're able to do is, as the project manager is making these adjustments across the different line items, we can aggregate that data. So for example, if I select this show full report here, I can kind of see all the different root causes that I've entered across the project. So for example, I can see here, hey, I've had 3 adjustments of rework of $50,000. That's pretty substantial. That probably tells me I've got a bit of a QA/QC problem on this. Let's say, for example, you had a lot of wrong material or missing material adjustments. That's going to tell you, okay, clearly we have some issue in terms of how we're doing our purchasing in our organization. We need to really identify that. And that's really what we're trying to get here is, yes, it's really important to kind of understand where you're going to end up at the end of the project, but equally important is how you got there. And kind of once you start to do that analysis of understanding how a project ended up where it is, that's where you can start to identify those trends and opportunities where you can improve as an organization.
I love it, man. That is awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So the next thing I was going to touch on here is really what a lot of this is helping the project manager get to that projected final cost, understanding what the profit margin fade or gain is. Something else I'd like to point out that I think sometimes get missed by contractors is this kind of profit margin fade or gain right here. This isn't due to any kind of adjustments you had to make because, material was more expensive or your production rates were slow. You could hit all of your budgets exactly, and you might still see a profit margin fade or gain. And the reason that happens is based on how you're processing change orders as a subcontractor. So I can see when I went from my original margin to my revised margin, I experienced a profit margin fade of 0.49%. So what we can do is we can basically take a look at all of your change orders for that project to understand what's happening here. So
hey, sorry,
yeah.
Kevin, I apologize for interrupting. However, I love the projected final cost. Can we issue a poll to ask our audience how many of them believe that they think that their PMs would actually use something like this?
Yeah, definitely. Give me a second right now.
Thank you for that. Folks, I appreciate you bearing with us and participating in the polls. It's something that's helping us get better, and we are essentially trying to be, the best analytics provider, for you. So this all helps.
Yeah. So while we're waiting on those poll results, we'll kind of talk about how you can use this change order tool to understand your profit margin fade or gain. So what this is doing, it's going to give you a list of all of your different change orders on the project. So I can see, all right, what's my original contract amount, original budget, my change order contract amount and budget, revised contract budget. I can filter on different statuses or just look at the approved ones. You can toggle things off or on. But what this timeline view is going to show is basically the dates that you're processing each change orders. How did that impact your profit margin percentage over time? So I can see on 12/31, that's where I saw the most significant drop in my profit margin. So I can actually select this here. It's going to update this grid down at the bottom that lists out all my change orders. I can kind of drill into this specific change order number 2. That seems to be the culprit here. And I'm going to see, the change order comments I entered from foundation, the change order budget amount, the change order contract amount, what the actual cost code breakdown was. And importantly, I can see what this change order profit margin is. So I can see my change order profit margin on here was 8.9%. And if I go back to my original profit margin on the job, it was 27.26%. So obviously, if I'm issuing change orders at a lower profit margin, I'm going to see a profit margin fade like that. So this is a really good tool where you can kind of drill in to see how a project manager is processing their change orders. Because I think that's something that sometimes gets missed is a lot of subcontractors in particular, they might bid a job at a 20% margin, but in their subcontract with the general contractor, they might be limited to what they can put on for markup for additional work. Maybe it's only 10 or 15%. And, sometimes that is what it is. But understanding how that actually trickles down and impacts the final financials of the project is a really important thing to understand and make sure you're doing.
I love it. You can't manage what you don't measure.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I love it.
And by the way, I know I see a couple of questions coming in. We'll kind of double back at the very end to get those all answered. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. We'll make sure we get to it at the end. So the next one I wanted to hit on here is, okay, we were able to kind of do that change order analysis at the project level. But a lot of time, if you're a CFO or a controller, you don't necessarily have the time to drill into each project to kind of do that analysis for a project. You might just want to kind of look at it at a macro level view to kind of understand how are you processing change orders as an organization. And what we can do is we can provide a dashboard that has that macro level view of, let's look across all of our different projects to see where we currently have change orders. So I can filter based on the change order year. I can look at different statuses, geographic areas. I can sort by project manager. I can see which projects have the most number of change orders. I can look at it month over month, how am I processing my change orders? And then at the bottom, you'll see just a grid view breakdown. But For example, let's say, hey, I want to see what are all the pending change orders I have out there, because that's going to be additional revenue and cash in the door that we're not anticipating right now. So if I filter on my pending change orders here, I can see I got $1.155 million in pending change orders. And specifically, our project manager, Tom Thumb here, he's got over $1 million in pending change orders. So if I click on Tom, it's going to update it, and it's going to tell me he has 12 pending change orders on this job, Hudson Yards here. All right, I don't know about you, but that probably means you need to do some follow-up with the general contractor or the owner to say, hey, where are these change orders? So being able to kind of very quickly go from, hey, we have, $1.155 million in pending change orders that might be additional revenue, to really understanding where that is and who's the client that you need to follow up with to get those change orders approved and in the door. Really being able to drill down to that information as quickly as possible is a powerful tool. And that's something you'll see time and time. And a lot of these analytics tools is sometimes it's simply about how quickly can you go from that major macro level view to the nitty-gritty details to understand kind of what's driving that big picture.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know this is one of your favorites. Change orders is something that you actually teach a lot. So this is great.
Yeah, it was a huge pain point for me when I was a project manager. So I get a little obsessive about it. And then, so what we can start to see here is we've got one view here where we can start to introduce a time element. And when we can start to introduce time elements in dashboards, it's a really great way to start seeing trends in your organization so you can start being more forward-looking. So we're looking at change orders here, maybe month-to-month change orders isn't that valuable to you, but a really good way to look at it month-to-month is if you look at what your sales are. So this is a sales report. You can see it has a very similar look and feel to the change order report. Down at the bottom here, you can see we've got a trend line showing what are my actual sales month to month. So, the blue bar chart, that's the actual sales I did in that month. And then this lighter blue that's a 6-month moving average. And that's a really good way to kind of just visually see, hey, maybe your sales oscillate a lot from one month to the next. But if you start to look at it over a larger period of time, you can maybe start to identify some larger patterns. So for example, here, we can see in our 6-month moving average, in about early 2020, we can see our 6-month moving average sales really start to drop down. I have a feeling we can all assume what that is related to. And then recently it started to pick back up. So little things like that allow you to kind of visualize, how is your performance actually progressing over time, can start to give you kind of insights into what might be driving your organization. And then you have a lot of the same tools that you saw in the changeover report. So I can drill in by state. I can look at it by project manager or salesperson. I can see who my top customers are. I can look at different project types. So let's say, I find a certain project type that's become our bread and butter. That's where we're getting most of our sales. You can really start to identify that and zero in and focus on that specific type of project. So kind of giving you different insights in terms of where are you actually finding the revenue, and kind of what are some of those larger trends that you're seeing within your organization? So yeah. I know we're coming up on time. Bruce, I'll leave it up to you. Should we pause for questions, or do you want to get to the resources?
So I got one question for you, and then we'll go to the questions.
Yeah.
If you go back down to the chart that had the moving average, where we saw the dip when COVID hit us. It's interesting. I know personally many contractors, they did not know what to do with their resources during that time. They had people on a bench. They closed down job sites. Fortunately, in many states, construction was a must-have. So they eventually started back up. However, I knew it was a problem, and I'm curious if you could show us whether it's a downturn or it is an opportunity to grow. How do we help contractors manage their resources?
Yeah, so what you can do is we have this resources tool where you can basically look at what are all the contracted jobs I currently have And when do I think that that start and end date is going to be, and what's the crew size I need for each one of those projects? So that's the starting places. What's the work you currently have? Let's map out what those resources are. But then what we really want is we want to supplement that with what is the work you're chasing. And the reason that's important is it gives you an opportunity to kind of look at what are those best and worst case scenarios. So what we have is we have a tool where you can go in and enter potential projects that you're currently bidding on, and you can score it on a scale of 1, 2, or 3. So 1 would be, hey, this project's a slam dunk. We're 100% going to get it. We're just waiting on the signed contract to come through. 2 would be we've got about a 50-50 shot. You know, we like our odds, but by no means is it guaranteed. And then 3 would be, this is kind of a crapshoot. You know, we're kind of throwing our hat in the ring, but you know, we're not really expecting to get it. And when you do that, you can kind of map out, all right, if we did get that project, what are the resources we think we would need for that project? Is it 5 guys, 6 guys, et cetera? And then what dates would that project actually happen over? And we can see here, we've got 4 tables. So this top table this is if you only have your contract work. And then the next one is, all right, if this is including all of the jobs that we're super optimistic on, and so on and so on. So you can kind of see what your manpower needs are in a best case scenario, if you got every single job, and in a worst case scenario, if you got no further work. So it kind of gives you that view to basically say, all right, you know, we may think we might do this or this, but based on the best and worst case scenario, you can kind of plan accordingly.
I love it. Well, yeah, I see you going. I was about to ask the question about, you know, scarce resources, because I think what you were showing before was really like laborers, right?
Yep. Yeah. So that'd be looking at your crew. But if you wanted to look at it more in terms of, hey, do we have enough project managers, superintendents? You can go to this staff projection. And what you're able to do is, as you assign project managers and superintendents to each project, you can basically say like, hey, I think this project manager is going to have to spend 5 hours a day working on this project. And then if you assign him to another project, you say he's going to need 3 hours a day on this one. And then another project where he needs 2 hours a day on this one. It's going to aggregate those totals up at the top here to basically tell you whether you're overbooking that specific employee or if he has some bandwidth to take on additional work.
I love that. I mean, I personally know contractors that use this all the time to manage their work in an aggregate way. It looks like it's 10:42. We have questions. You know, I think that I'm not going to be as selfish anymore if we could get to some of the questions and keep this rolling. I know we're just getting started, but we look like we might be running out of time here. So,
yeah. So the first question, once each PM completes the WIP analysis, is there a secondary WIP, including adjustment options for the CFO to send off to the CPA tax accountant? So that's actually a really good question. Kind of what we see most frequently on this projected final cost tool is the project manager is going to go in and make those adjustments, and then that's going to flow back to the WIP report. And we see a lot of subcontractors will kind of review that in a monthly job reviews meeting. And if the CFO wants to make any adjustments to it, there's typically a line item that gets added at the bottom called like management budget adjustment. So that's how we see it a lot. But what's great is on the WIP report, we can add additional toggles if you need it to basically say, hey, I want to see this with the projected final cost total, or I want to see it based on the revised budget. So you can kind of see how that project financials look, whether you're taking what the PM is providing you, or if you're kind of sticking with what's the data just purely coming out of foundation. The next one, can you see separate dashboards and job costs by division when 2 divisions are on the same project? Yes. So what we're able to do is you can create different operational areas within the system. So you can see up at the top, this environment I'm in right now only has 1 operational area, but you can create different operational areas. So when you go into those different operational areas, you can see the different data. And then the last question, do any changes made in Pronovus flow through to foundation? Not as of yet. Currently, it's only a one-way sync. We're pulling the information from foundation, but that is something hopefully through this partnership we will get to in the coming months, is then pushing any adjustments made in Pronovus back up to foundation.
And I would say that to that question, we are working closely with Foundation to make that happen. We've gotten that question quite a few times, so you could expect that real soon.
Yeah, I think from the foundation perspective, with we're working on the APIs right now. Hopefully we got a beta in there right now. So hopefully as our API expands and we have some endpoints available, I talk with you guys all the time, Bruce, Kevin, John, and the whole Pronovos team. So I know, as soon as those things become available, you guys will probably jump on them and improve that experience.
Yeah. Listen, I want to be cognizant of people's time. There are a few dashboards that we skipped over. However, I would be doing a disservice to everyone on the call if I did not stop and say, if you are interested in learning more about Pronovos, please feel free to reach out to us. Love to, give you a run through of the application. We'll give you a demo with your data so you can actually create an account. We'll actually set up an environment for you, just like that. I was actually just joking with Kevin about months. It takes literally, hours, a couple of hours to get you set up. So reach out to us. We love to hear from you. We are practitioners. I don't want you to think that, we're know-it-alls. We're practitioners. We're always trying to learn from contractors. You guys have done something to allow you guys to grow this far using what you have. Let us partner with you and let us take you to that next level through, analytics, the data. So, I don't know if there is anything else that you want to cover. I counted 8 different dashboards on the screen, or things that we would talk about, and we probably went through less than half. So again, I am going to be mindful of those that have to jump off. However, if you like to hang on, Kevin, I don't know if you're prepared to go through anything else, but hey, I'm down if you are.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to do it.
All right. So how about I turn it, let's do one more dashboard before we call it a day.
Give me 1 second here.
All right.
And while he's looking at this, Bruce had mentioned earlier our construction business report and our construction business survey. So that's also open. We're in the process of having that out for 2022, kind of shameless plug there. So we can help kind of consolidate a lot of that information. It's no cost. You guys get all the information back when it's done. I know Pronovos has sent out some things for us, and you can check on our website, a chance to win $250 and some items like that. But so I think continue developing more information and we can all kind of learn.
Yeah, that's a great report, by the way. I know it helps. It helps a lot. I appreciate you guys putting that together.
Yeah, we're hoping this year will be just as strong too. So.
All right.
This is our finale. Make it good.
So this is a labor analysis report. You'll kind of see we're hiding a lot of the breakdown by hours by employee here, but really something that we find is useful for a lot of contractors is looking at what is your average labor curve on a project. And it's a very simple visualization that will kind of tell you whether a project is going according to plan or not. Typically on a project, you're going to expect to see a very simple bell curve, so going up and coming back down. And if you are starting to see projects that don't have that curve, it's a really good indicator that something happened. So on this one here, you can see we're kind of plugging along. Something happened, there was a dip in the hours, and then we kind of ramped back up. So understanding what kind of drove that dip, maybe it was you had a break in your scope of work and you had to pull off site. Well, that's a really good thing to understand because it might mean that you have to charge for a second mobilization to the job site. Maybe it was, hey, you had to slow down your scheduled list of activities because, a contractor who was in front of you didn't finish their scope of work on time. And, you might need to go to have a change order for additional delay costs. So kind of understanding what your average labor curve is and when you drift away from that average labor curve and what may have caused it. It's a really good visual that even, someone in a foreman, superintendent type role, just giving them that information is something that can help them kind of understanding how they're progressing on the job site.
Got it. Kevin, there's one more question. What is the price structure? And I'll take that. The price structure is affordable. How about that? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, it's per user per seat. Typically, this is SaaS. This is all cloud based. You don't have to, fork out, a lot of money up front. But basically, it runs about anywhere from $65 to I think $105 per seat per month, depending upon the user. So thank you for that question.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I think it's almost all foundation folks that are on this call here. And if you're not, you definitely give us a call. If you're on foundation, take a look. We got a lot of new things moving and shaking, some new estimating, some project management. We got some big announcements coming up, and including our great partnership with ProNovos. So reach out to them, reach out to us, see what we can do, and see if we can improve your business and help you grow as we grow. So.
Hey, Eric, thanks again for everyone that took the time out to join. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please do reach out. Thanks.